Hey all, Alex Weinberg here. I wanted to take a second to break down the sound design and implementation I did working with the 3D Game Kit project in Unity and Wwise, specifically focusing on the projectile launched by the grenadier enemy. The grenade itself consisted of the following sounds. It sort of reminded me of a glass energy orb, so I wanted to include a looping energy emit sound to mirror that. I included both a high and a low emitting energy sound and treated them differently in Wwise, which I'll dive into later. The bounce consists of two parts. The first one I tried to make a mystic kind of generic glass bounce, and then the second is the material. We have both stone and grass. And then I also needed an explosion. Then I imported all of my sounds into Wwise, set up the project, created the events and some of the game syncs, generated the sound banks, and integrated Wwise into the Unity project. In the Unity project for the 3D Game Kit, I went through the existing logic for the grenade to get a sense of how it worked and how I could implement my sound effects. First, I needed to set up and declare any Wwise events I would be needing. I also included a bool, debug mode, so I could easily turn on and off my console debug messages I had set up. Then I just made sure to wrap each debug log with a check to this variable. So within the main grenade logic script, there is a function called shot that is called when the grenade is first launched. Here I post the emit event I set up in Wwise. This plays both the low and the high loops I made. In onCollisionEnter, which Unity calls every time this game object collides with another object, I do a few things. I added a check to see if the other object it collided with has a layer that does not equal 9, which is assigned to the player character. So if it's not the player, I check the tag of the colliding object and use that to determine which switch to set for the grenade bounce material switch group. I then went through and set the tags for all the ground objects. To speed this process up, I made a quick helper script that bulk assigns a selected tag to all selected objects in the Unity hierarchy. Then I get the velocity of the grenade at the time of the collision by accessing the relative velocity from the collision result. I use that to drive a grenade velocity RTPC in Wwise. I wanted to affect the pitch of the emit loop when it bounces, so it sets this based on the velocity, and then I use a coroutine to gently bring the RTPC back down to 0. In fixed update, I use the variable they had set called since fired, which keeps track of the time since the grenade has been fired. I also use a variable that was already set up called explosion timer that dictates how long the grenade will last until the explode function is called. I declared two variables here at the top, a bool called pre-explode, which is set to false in onEnable, and a float called pre-explode time. Back in fixed update, a check is made to see if the time since the grenade has been fired, minus the set time to explode, is less than or equal to the pre-explode time I set. If so, I set the pre-explode bool to true so it won't continue to happen every time fixed update is called, and I post the grenade pre-explode Wwise event. This event does a couple things. It sets a game parameter called grenade distortion to 100. It also sets a game parameter, grenade pre-explode pitch, to 100 as well. These game parameters are both set to 0, along with the grenade velocity in the play grenade loop to avoid incorrect values being left over when a new grenade is instantiated. These two game parameters are both set up the same way. The interpolation mode is set to filtering over time, and both have a slight attack, so you can hear them ramping up. The grenade distortion parameter is mapped to the wet-dry control of a distortion placed on the emit loop. I set it up to take some of the low end away and ramp up a fizzy high end, almost like it's gearing up to blow up. The pitch parameter is mapped to the voice pitch on this same loop. As it's getting more and more gritty and saturated, the pitch is rising, hopefully letting the player know it's getting close to exploding. Going back to the grenade script, at this point, the explosion function is called. Towards the end of this, I added a call to post the grenade explode Wwise event. This event first stops the emit loop and then plays an explosion. That's all for now, but if you have any thoughts, comments, ways to optimize or improve, please feel free to leave a comment. Feedback is always appreciated. Until next time, cheers.